Hello, everybody. Welcome to Listenable, of course, the podcast where we try and normalise disability through the lens, literally, cameras in front of us, a accessible podcast on YouTube and across all your podcasting platforms. And today we've got a guest who we're very excited to have on for multiple reasons, but we're going to let him introduce himself.
G'day, everyone. I'm Matt Formston. I suppose I'm probably most known for surfing giant waves in Nazaré. I've got a Guinness World Record for the largest wave ever surfed by a parasurfer. I'm a Paralympian, world champion surfer, four-time world champion surfer, world champion cyclist. I'm a business executive. I run sustainability for Optus Enterprise. I'm on a few different boards. Really proud that I've created a few innovations in the disability space. You know, we did a book with Vision Australia where it was the first ever book to have Braille text and illustrations in the same book. You know, I was part of developing the first ever tandem carbon bike that was raced internationally. Done a few different things, but that's a little bit about me. Proud dad, got 3 kids, and junior rugby league coach.
What, you're a walking Wikipedia. Absolutely brilliant. Well, thanks for giving us a top line as we'll dive obviously into the disability aspects of some of those pieces of stories. But you've actually brought in I'm going to call it a prop for now to let you explain to the audience.
When I do keynotes, I've been a speaker for about 15 years, right? And I get to the end, and I'm blind. That's probably another key part for the audience. So, and my blindness is, obviously blindness comes in different nuances. My blindness is macular dystrophy. I've got no central vision, so everything in the middle of my eyes is blurred out. And then the outside bits on both sides, there's nothing at all. And so it's actually, I used to think it was black. So I've done a few movies and bits and pieces, and we've simulated my vision, and it's normally been like a black in the middle. But then I realised as I'm talking to people, it's actually nothing. It's not black, it's not white, it's just not there. It's just invisible. I can't see anything at all. Things just disappear. And then the outside is just really blurry. So if you can imagine driving along in your car, if you're listening to the podcast in your car and you're looking out the window and if it's really rainy or you've got sandpaper and you just scratch all the window out until there's about 1% clarity left. That's what I see in my left eye just out the outsides. And on my right eye, I've got 3%. So the technical, my technical description is a sweet FA. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So the goggles I have with the prop, they actually simulate my vision. So I talk for an hour or an hour and a half on a stage, or getting back to me doing a keynote, and an audience member would come up and say, "Do you need glasses?" So they didn't get it right. So then I was like, okay, I need to get my audiences into my world so we can get that out of the way and then we can get onto the good stuff. So we've created these goggles that simulate my vision. So now I take audiences. So we do things like I did a leadership course last week and keynote with all the leaders in NRL. So all the best, some of the best footy players in Australia. And we got them to pass footies to each other, and so with my vision. So, and then I've done a few stuff with the defence, and we just do different exercises, or if it's just business audience, I'll use beach balls and pass it to each other, and they start evolving very quickly. So they start communicating better, and the audience can see how within a 5-minute period, just living with a disability for 5 minutes, they already start evolving and learning to adapt to their world. So. My ask is, if you're going to chuck it, I've never done this before. I've done lots of podcasts, never done this, but we're doing a disability podcast. So can you jump in my world for the whole podcast?
I am. I'm currently putting on the ski goggles and yeah, wow. Okay. I guess I can explain what I see and then...
Awesome.
Or can't see in this. I can see light. I can see a light source above us, which is lightness for the video podcast.
Yeah.
I can see one in front of us, but also... For the muchness, it's sweet FA. You've blacked out the middle part of the central vision, and so my peripheral is just shapes.
Yeah, and that's what it is. So there's something here, right? You can you see that? There's things here like darker.
I can't.
You can. Your brain's saying no, I can't, but you actually can because I can put those goggles on and I still have a little bit.
Yeah.
Your brain needs to learn to interpret.
What I was going to say is I'm so familiar with the studio because it's my business.
Yeah.
So I know that you've touched a plan behind you.
Yes, yeah.
So I just wonder where my bias would come in to knowing exactly what you're doing. Yeah. I can see your hand.
Yeah.
The more that I move away from you, my eyes, your right hand, I can see you've just put it up.
And you become more light sensitive, right? Because the eyes are very, the tissue on the back of the eye is very light sensitive. So the more light you get, the better you see.
Do you find in your life, just referring to my vision at the moment, do you find that you have to turn away from somebody to kind of get more interaction with them to understand what they're doing? Like when you put your hand up, the edges of this glass, the ski goggles that I've got on are lighter, so I could see that movement. Do you find that that's a little bit inhibiting because you've got to turn away from somebody to kind of see?
So the goggles, they're a bit. It's a bit hard for me to simulate exactly what I see, because if you need to actually simulate what I see, you need to keep your central vision focused on those dots in the middle.
Yeah.
And then move your head. Whereas I can move my eyes around and the blurriness goes, because that's my central vision.
Yeah.
So I can move my eyes around, but I don't bother. Like, I can't see anyone enough to warrant needing. Like, I can't see facial features. I don't get a lot out of an interaction visually, so I don't try to see things, if that makes sense.
I'm going to do something a bit dramatic here, Matt, if you let me. I have notes. I've done preparation for this, but because I can't see them.
Okay. Out the window?
Well, I have to be, right?
Okay.
If I want to be authentic to,
we've got someone else in the room that could help you, because that's one of the other things I've learned with a disability, right? So you can ask for help.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, Amelia will help with the specific bowl of uncomfortable questions at the end. But I'd like to start at what, we first heard about you from, Matt, which is being the blind surfer. There's a movie out, which is incredible, which is you surfing a 51-foot wave at Nazaré in Portugal. Can you take us through, for one, the intention, because you did mention that you've got, is degenerative a word that you use?
My vision? It's called macular degeneration or macular dystrophy. So most people will have heard macular degeneration.
Yeah.
Which actually it's very common. So it affects 1 in 7 adults over the age of 55 in Australia. So very common. But in most cases it's managed so that people don't lose their eyesight. Now they would have, going back 50 years.
Yep.
But because my macular dystrophy. So my eyesight did degenerate. I had full vision until I was 5. And then it degenerated over 1 year. So in 1 year, I basically lost 95% of my vision. And then I've lost another sort of 2 or 3% over the last 20, 30 years. We don't know if it'll degenerate more or if it'll stay the same. But yeah, it can degenerate. But it's not technically a degenerative disease. It's a macular dystrophy, which can be stabilised.
Of course. Having experienced surfing myself, there's, I couldn't go out on certain days because of the fear of the size of the waves.
Yep.
Do you not have that fear, especially, and obviously we're kind of building towards a 51-foot wave, the world record wave, but do you not have that fear of how big surf is on a certain day? I mean, obviously you're notified by the people who are going to be with you.
Yeah.
But does that fear not exist because that sort of scale doesn't exist to you? It's the same processes?
This is a nuanced answer. So my parents say I was born without a self-preservation gene. So I used to ride my bike as fast as I could down the street, and I didn't have gutters in my street. So I would just ride along the side of the road, and I could feel if I came off went onto the grass back onto the road, and I'd just ride sort of like in a zigzag, but quite a straight zigzag, and just stay on the side of the road, and that'd keep me straight. And I'd race my mates on bikes, going back to when I was a kid, and just fast. And then I'd lose track where I was and run straight into a tree. And then I'd climb trees higher than everyone in my suburb. Like, I'd always climb the highest, and kids would say it's because you can't see the ground. But what I've done a lot of analysis on myself as an executive coach, as a speaker. I've had to, because people ask me these questions, like you get asked a lot of questions, why, how, all those things about yourself, right? So I've had to self-analyze and work out what it is. I've worked out it's because I was fearful of being different. So my biggest fear until I was like in my late 20s was being different. And not even being different because of, for any other reason, purely about my disability. I was embarrassed about my disability. I didn't want to be seen as a person that had a disability. I always, if you look at some of my clothing choices for when I was like 20, it wasn't good. I think I went out, me and my mate got a pair of reef shoes. We're both size 10, and he got a bright blue pair and I got a bright yellow pair, and then we swapped one each, so we had a bright yellow and a bright blue. Yeah, it's pretty. Right. So I was definitely trying to get some attention, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to be different in that way, but I didn't want to be different in the way that I had a disability, which was the way that I couldn't choose. I couldn't choose to take my disability off. I could definitely choose to take those shoes off, right? So I grew up with that fear of being different. So everything else I did, I played rugby league to a representative level. I played rugby union to representative level in able-bodied sport as a blind person. I played ice hockey. I won a state award for ice hockey, and I just worked so hard in all those sports to be the best version, to be the best, to be the best player on the ice or on the field. And I'd always put myself, and you're probably picking up, they're all contact sports, right? That worked really well for me. If I tried to play non-contact sports, it didn't work so well. I'd get sent off pretty quickly because I'd run into people that you're not allowed to do that.
You weren't great at netball.
No, definitely not good at netball. But yeah, that was so. But I was good at all those sports, and I'd put myself in harm's way. Like I'd tackle the biggest guy on the field, and I wasn't. I was one of the smallest. You know what I mean? I'd put myself in because I was more worried about the boys saying you missed that tackle because you're blind, than you didn't make the tackle because you're soft, or you didn't make the tackle because you're not good enough footy player. So I went through that life experience of, I spent 20 years being embarrassed about my disability and wanting to not be disabled. And then did some really crazy stuff. I lost sport in my late teens, started partying, did that way too hard, went way the other way. Went from being a really good athlete to being a really unhealthy human in a lot of ways and behaviours. Got into a lot of bar fights, a lot. It was we'd be out partying, taking substances, would come home after dark, when the sun's coming up, and just got into a really toxic period for about 10 years of my life, lost myself, right? And then my proudest moment was to take all my gold medals away, forget about all the Guinness World Records. My biggest achievement that I believe in my life is coming out of that period, because I it's not through any skill or anything. It's just pure luck that I didn't end up dead or in jail. I recognised with myself that wasn't who I wanted to be. When I looked in the mirror, even though I can't look in the mirror, I'm just going to use this as a metaphor, but looking in the mirror, taking all the filters off, I wasn't pretty what I was looking at. So I looked at myself, what's the best version of me, how I can be the best version of me. And since I did that self-analysis and took real ownership of who I am, within 2 years I was writing for Australia, got my first executive job, found my wife, got married. My whole life just I was sort of hanging around, single, wasn't having successful relationships. My job was sort of stagnating, hadn't done really anything in the sporting arena. And then, within 2 to 3 years, the whole world was on a plate in front of me.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a long answer to a question that I don't even know what you asked, but yeah.
I don't think we did answer the question, which was the fear around size of waves.
Well, so I suppose I'm giving you the context of why I don't have fear, right?
Yeah, so I did get the big picture, yeah.
So I got through all that, and I've been that person that is fighting with people that I shouldn't be fighting against, and putting myself in real harm's way. So now when I'm on the start line at a big race, or if I'm in big waves, I'm just analysing, what do I need to do to be the best version of myself? And is this really risky? Actually, this is a good one. So when I do keynotes, to that point, one of the first slides I show is not anything to do with sport. I put a big drop saw up on the screen, and I tell people about my vision. I say, and for everyone in the audience, put your hand up if you'd let a child or an elderly person or someone who's a dependent of yours that had my vision, if you'd let them use a drop saw, right? And no one puts their hand up. My dad was the guy that could put his hand up. So he taught me in a young age how to use a drop saw and how to remove all the risk. So as a society, we look at something and we go, okay, drop saw, blind, it's just a stop, right? We need to be more looking at what does this person want to do, and let's find a process for them to be able to do it. So my dad would say, okay, use a drop saw, don't put your finger anywhere near the trigger, do your measurement, and I'm not able to use a tape measure. So my way I measure is I go and put the piece of wood next to where I need to cut it, and then I bring the piece of wood back to the saw and drop my finger down and hit the blade right next to my finger, so I know that's a perfect cut. And then the process I use removes all the risk, because my finger never goes near the motor trigger until I've done the measurement. I lock it down, I move my hand away, then I grab the motor trigger and do the cut. So it removes the risk. So once again, long answer, but that combination of being more scared of being different, and then the combination of Dad teaching me how to analyze real risk and look at analyze things to see real risk as opposed to perceived risk. When I go into environments like Nazaré, where everyone goes, the whole world media was going, he's going to die, they're going to kill the blind guy. I looked at the data. I was like, well, actually, not many people have died there. When you do the training, and the people that have died, there's been certain variables, you know what I mean? So if I remove those variables, despite the fact that I'm blind, I'm an elite surfer, I'm a 4-time world champion, I can hold my breath for crazy amounts of time, more than any able-bodied surfer, I think. If I look at the real data, is there a real risk there? There is, but it's not massive.
Cool, I love that.
Yeah.
So a perfect lead into Nazaré and, a 51-foot wave.
Yeah.
A lot of people would probably not understand, or would probably think when you're surfing that you're going to be paddling out.
Yes.
For the most part, they wouldn't understand jet skis are involved for towing.
Yes.
To get you out into those waves. So you're not duck diving under 50-foot waves.
Yeah.
But can you take us through the process? And I know you train in Fiji.
Yeah.
But can you take us through like the process of how you catch a wave? And then I'd really love you to describe the moments of going down the face of Nazaré after that. So, and the people that assist you with knowing when to paddle, how to get out, etc.
Yeah. So I'll just talk you through how I surf to start with. So when I'm on land, I use a cane sometimes. Sometimes I use echolocation. This morning I travelled here on the plane, so I had my carry-on bag. So I put my wheelie bag in front of me, and that tells me what's in front of me. So there's different ways to get around. In the ocean, when I'm surfing, my front foot becomes my cane. So I can feel, as I'm going down the wave, how steep it is. As I'm going across it, I can feel what I need to do. So basically my brain, I don't do this consciously, but my brain breaks the wave down into 3 parts: the top third, the middle third, and the bottom third. And then as I'm going through each of those thirds up and down the wave, my body, my feet can feel what the wave's doing, and then I know how to respond, what turn I need to do. If I'm going to go straight up, if I'm going to get like pump, keep racing away from the wave. There's a certain feeling I get under my board when the water starts drawing. I know the wave's going to barrel, so I can pull in and get barreled. So it's just this feeling, and it's not something I don't think I couldn't tell anyone how to do that. I couldn't teach you how to do that in a week. It's just me pulling into barrels at Narrabeen for 10 years. I didn't do my first turn for like 10 years. It's just lots and lots, well over the 10,000 hours. I've done way more than my 10,000 hours to get to that level of feeling, right? So then we take that into a competition environment. I'd never really had much help growing up. The boys would just go out together. I'd just sort of follow the dots, follow them as my mates were the dots, hope they weren't sharks. And then I just feel and find, I could feel the waves going up and down, and I just paddle myself into waves because I didn't want help, right? Because if you ask for help, you're obviously disabled. And I didn't acknowledge that I was disabled, which I do now, just to clarify. And proud disability, right? I think it's made me who I am. So anyway, we can get into that later. But then competitions, I've got someone in the water who tells me, so I started asking for help when I acknowledged I had disability. Started asking for help, changed my world, made my experience as a surfer so much more fun and safe, and just opened up so many opportunities for me. So I started asking for help. So then in competition, I have a spotter in the water. They tell me when a wave's coming, if it's a right or if it's a left. So if I'm going to go right or left, and then towards the end, they'll tell me that we use single words, because if they say, actually, this really bad situation happened once where I was paddling into some quite big surf, and the boys were like, go. We used to say, go, 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 go. And everyone in the lineup gets pumped when they know I'm out, and they're like, go, Matty, go, go. And then I took off in this wave, and I got absolutely flogged, ended up on the rocks, like board damaged, me damaged, everything. And I cut it like that. I was like, oh, thanks, boys, stitched me up there. And they're like, mate, didn't you hear us? We said no.
Oh, go, and no, very close.
Yes. So we say yes, yes, yes now. Yep. So they call me yep. And the louder they get, the more confidence it gives me, and I charge. Like I'll just go for it. And then once I'm on the wave, it's up to me. In the big wave environment, and this is the same for able-bodied surfers, when it's big, you get towed in. You can't match the speed of the wave. The wave's traveling so fast, you can't physically paddle into waves that big. We use a jet ski to get us up to speed and get us into the wave. So, but what's different about me? It's sort of if I'm surfing 50-foot waves, I've got a safety team of 4 jet skis. So I'll have my tow driver, and then we call my first safety, which is the second jet ski, third safety, fourth safety. So there's always one guy on each jet ski. My fourth jet ski has a second guy, and he's there for if I become unconscious, he's got fins on, like flippers on. He can jump off the ski, recover me, get me on the sled, and get out of there. Like the waves we're surfing are like so the 50-foot wave, that's like a 55-foot. 5-story building. So if people are driving around, you look up at a building that's 5 stories, that's about how big the wave was. And I caught multiple waves that were similar size to that over a 3-day period. So yeah, that safety team is what the other guys use. So Lucas, Chumbo and Dylan, when they're surfing over 80 foot, they use that sort of safety team, right? But when it's 50 foot, they only need 2 skis. Because of my disability, I increase my safety profile to make sure, because I'm probably going to make bad decisions. And then the other nuance we use, when they're getting towed behind so you're on a piece of rope behind the jet ski, you're getting towed in, we call it, and you've got straps, you're strapped into your board, you've got foot straps, so you're laying in the water, then your driver will see a wave they like, or I've actually got a spotter on the headland as well. So that's another role we have in the team. So my spotter is Strodgy, he's on the headland, and he sort of says, boys, there's the second wave or third wave, go. So we sort of go out towards the wave, and then we travel back in with the wave. So he's talking, all the guys have got CBs on their chest, so he can talk and communicate with the whole team. My tow driver will tow me in. Now, that's all the same stuff for an able-bodied surfer. Where it changes is once you get to the crest of the wave and you're about to drop down your 5-story building, I can't see the bottom of the wave. I can't see what's in front of me. If there's chop, I can't see any of that. So a normal able-bodied surfer would look down the wave and go, yep, that's a good one. Cool. And they'd pull the rope to get a bit more speed and drop down. Or they, what we call kick out, and they turn away from the wave and they ride away. So they don't catch that wave. Yeah.
Yep.
My team have to make those decisions for me. So we'd always use yep, 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 or yes off the ski in Australia and other places I've surfed. Once we got over there, we realised that there was so much at risk and there's so much at stake, the life or death situation, that we need to be really binary, and that no-go situation was a real lesson. So we use a whistle.
Oh, wow.
So we just use an orienteering whistle that we got from like an orienteering shop in Portugal, and it's perfect because it's so clear. It doesn't matter if there's other ski teams, anyone else yelling. I can't confuse that information with anything else. So once my tow driver is 100% certain that that's the right wave and they want me to go, they blow the whistle, and I just have to react and pull the rope and let go, and then I'm dropping down.
So what is that feeling like? Obviously, 10 years surfing the Narrabeen, the home break, understanding what that front foot means for how vertical you're going.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it would have been a graduation of wave size. You don't go from 10 to 50 feet.
Correct.
But can you go through what that sensation feels like to you? Because the sound would be amplified tenfold. The angle would be different. Yep. Can you just take us through that moment once you let go of the rope and you're free on that wave?
Yeah.
What does that feel and sound like?
The waves sound like bombs going off over there. Like you've got thousands of people on the headland all talking, and when a wave breaks, it sounds like a bomb going off. I've never heard a bomb go off, so I can't really compare it to that, but that's what I would imagine a bomb sounds like. And I surfed, 25 waves-ish over a 3-day period in Nazaré. And then on the last day, we were just mucking around, and I jumped on the back of on the jet ski with Lucas, and went down. So just rode down a wave instead of surfing it. I rode down the wave on the jet ski. So I wasn't dialed into me being focused on surfing. Right, I was just a passenger on the ski, and I heard the wave explode behind me, and it scared the shit out of me. Like I actually had like real bad butterflies in my tummy, and I was a bit like, "Well, that was a bit scary." And then I realised that I'd surfed 25 waves at Nazaré. And on all of the waves, the rest of the time I'd been out the back, or I'd been on the inside. We call like getting washed in and being recovered by the boys. And like at that time, you're focused on staying alive. Like, what do I need to do just to hold onto the ski? All your protocols, all your training is kicked in until you get back out the back, and that's the safe zone, right? When you're behind where the waves break. So I'd spent most of the time over the 3 days out the back, and then I realised I'd never heard any of the waves. So I'm surfing these giant waves. They're exploding like right behind my heels. I've got a jet ski team of 4 skis all buzzing around me everywhere, plus cameras. I had 2 jet skis in the water in front of me. I didn't hear anything. I did not hear it. I was complete silence. And there's probably heard other athletes talk about this being in the zone. I was so in the zone, I didn't hear it. Everything went silent, and all I heard was the whistle.
Yeah, wow.
So I rode down the wave. So when we first started with the whistle, it was just when I let go of the rope. And then Lucas said, "You're turning too late," because I was going so fast. You're doing like 70 k's an hour down the face over there. So it was really difficult for me to feel when I was getting to that 3/3 thing I talked about. It was really difficult for me to feel when I got to the bottom third because I'm going that fast and turn quick enough. So he's like, "You're turning too late at the bottom." So he blew the whistle a second time, and then he blew the whistle a third time for me to. So I do my bottom turn, then I'd go up and down and surf the wave, and then when he thought the wave was going to end and it was time for me to get out, he'd blow the whistle a third time, and I'd kick out. I'd go off the back of the wave. So my brain just knew it needed that information of the whistle, so it filtered everything else out. So that was something that's really like no one expected that, right? That was an experience I had. But then the feeling of the board under my feet was just amazing. Like you're going down this giant face. We normally ride surfboards in Australia that are quite light. Like we try and make our small wave boards as light as possible because you want to move them around. And then you want a bit of weight in your high performance or bigger wave boards in Australia. But tow boards in Australia, we put about 5 kilos of lead in them.
Yeah, wow.
So it holds them in, because obviously when you're going that fast, the board's trying
wind underneath it, yeah.
It's trying to skip it. Yeah, it's trying to skip out of the water because you're going so fast. So in Nazaré, my tow board had 10 kilos in it.
This podcast is obviously a disability podcast. We don't do comparisons, but do you find it difficult or annoying when somebody does try and make a comparison between the able-bodied experience of a 50-foot surf versus your experience?
No, I haven't. I think when I used to when I obviously went to the Paralympics for cycling, so I did a lot of time on a bike, and I'd have in that environment people would say to me, "Oh, you're missing out on the the scenery as we're riding around, like you're riding around Switzerland or whatever, and or in the Alps in Italy and stuff like that. And I think that's coming from a good place, what they're saying. They're not saying it in a negative way. I think being inquisitive is really good. I take that as a question as opposed to, and it might be my approach to it, but I think going back to when I was embarrassed about being disabled, I probably would have taken that offensively. But now I see there's an opportunity to educate someone. It's like a question, like, do you, and like, no, not really. I'm enjoying the experience of like, I'm out with you guys. You can tell me about it. Like my way to experience scenery is to be in an environment and people are telling me what they're seeing. To smell like the different air when you're going through, feel the different temperature and humidity, and it's just a different way to experience the world. Yeah.
Perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back to 20-year-old Matt when you did say that you were uncomfortable associating yourself as being disability or disability proud.
100%, mate. I had long hair until I was 20. I had my hair plaited in small, like The Offspring. I don't know if you remember The Offspring, but yeah.
Great 90s reference.
With silver beads at the end.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, horrendous stuff.
So were they distraction techniques? Were they something that you were hoping would take away from the fact that people found out or knew that you were blind because you had such kooky shoe choices?
I think because at parties, guys they could be there, and my mates would say, "Oh, this girl's looking over at you," or whatever. I couldn't see where they were, and then if I tried to get to them, I'd end up falling in the fire, or tripping over and making a fool of myself. And then you're embarrassed. You don't really want to go and talk to some girl that might have been looking over at you. So I learned to play. I played guitar, and I started playing guitar. I played a guitar at a few parties, and then I realised that when you play guitar, the girls come to you.
Nice.
So
hot tip, everyone.
But I think that was sort of the experience. Like if I can to do the look at me thing, maybe people will come to me because I can't come to them. But yeah, they were bad decisions.
Everyone was making them though, not just you.
Everyone was making them though. But I think it was also an insecurity thing. As much as people that are sometimes that are wearing that type of fashion look like they're super confident, they're not confident at all. It's a way to disguise their insecurity. So I think I was super insecure, and I had issues around not owning my identity and not being proud of who I was. So I think once I was proud of who I was, I didn't need to do the whole look at me because of my clothing or my superficiality. It's more, I'm just me.
You did mention, women there.
Yeah.
You have a wife, you've got kids, 3 kids.
Yeah.
I know there's a bowl of uncomfortable, a really interesting one that I'm excited to get to in a little bit. But can we talk about, obviously she only knows you and you only know her as a blind person.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing right now, the goggles are still on and will be for the whole podcast.
Yes.
But, I can understand that you wouldn't know in pure detail what your wife looks like.
Yes.
Can you talk through how you met?
Yeah.
Also, what was dating like, in the dark?
Yeah.
And then also, because you don't have that level of sight where the aesthetic matters so much.
Yeah.
Were you asking friends, clarifying? Because there's, some classic examples of in TV sitcoms where I think it was Seinfeld where the girl was telling her blind friend, don't tell him what I really look like. I've told him I'm a model.
Yes.
Have you had any, can you take us through your relationship with your partner?
Yeah, so maybe I'll go through before I met my partner and that experience. So when I was out dancing with the boys, I could see enough sort of in with lights flashing and stuff to see how, if someone put fingers in front of my face.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
I could see just then that you waved your hand.
Yep. So they'd just hold it really close.
Yep.
And then I'd see if there was 2 hands, that's a 7. Okay, cool. So they'd whisper, they yell on the left or on the right, and they'd tell me the numbers, what I visually
Yep.
Which when I was that age, I thought that was really important. What they looked like. And then worse than that, I'd ask my mates all the time, is she good looking? Is she hot? And I'd just be always worried about having a hot girlfriend because I thought that was important because I couldn't see and I was just confused about the whole thing, right? And I think that distracted me from finding the right partner. That was a really big hurdle for me. And I think it's important for someone to be healthy and happy and all those things and be confident with themselves. But yeah, that was definitely something that happened in my life and something that I was chasing that hot girlfriend. And then over time that I realized actually I had a few hot girlfriends and a few not so hot girlfriends and whatever that other people's perspective on that is. But I realized that I had some really bad relationships with some people that weren't that nice. Some women that did some at one point I was with a lady and we ended up we were living together. So, you know, it's quite a serious relationship. And then we had this intimacy issues, and she said, "Oh, like, what's going on?" She said, "Oh, I can't do it because you can't look me in the eye."
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So you go through those things as well, and you're like, hang on, am I making the right choices here? Like, I need to look at the core values of who these people are and what they stand for. So I went through all that, and anyway, I found my wife, and literally within a week of meeting her, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So yeah, everything about her is good. But back to the vision thing. Look, I can feel. So I'd ask you a question. If you're looking at a and you probably can see better than this, but now that you're going my vision, if I put a piece of hair on in a phone book, would you be able to find it quicker by feeling it or by seeing it?
It's a great question. Old needle in the haystack. Oh God, let me think about that. Single hair. I'm going to go with a blonde hair on a yellow piece of paper.
Yeah.
I'd probably want to roll my finger across the page and see if I get that little bit of, you know,
and you could even
tactileness.
get a couple of pages away if it's in the book, right?
Mm.
So yeah, I think touch, like even if you lose a tooth, to look at it, you think, oh, there's a massive hole in my mouth because your tongue feels like there's a huge hole in your mouth, but to see it, people say it looks tiny. That's not what I'm feeling.
It's perception,
right? Yeah, it's perception. So I think the touch is actually a strongest. There's more neurons in your finger than there are, you know, the amount of pixels, I suppose, that are going through to your brain. So, yeah. So I mean, I know what my wife sort of looks like. But you know, I suppose a flip to that would be people say, if you could get your vision back, what would be the main thing you'd want to do, right? Most people think I'd want to drive a car or do something like that. But I'd love to see what my kids' faces look like.
Yeah, of course. Now, we've got a bowl of uncomfortable. It's a part of our podcast where people send in questions knowing that we're going to have you on as a guest. Before we get to that, I want to talk about your book.
Okay.
I've just remembered that because obviously I have no notes in front of me.
Good.
But the name of the book is, I'm going to remember it. Surfing in the Dark?
Yes.
Okay, great. Surfing in the Dark. It's in front of us if you're looking at this on YouTube or in the socials, but it is a colour book. So it's a book that has Braille and also illustrations. And you were saying that's one of the first ever.
It's the first ever.
Right.
The first ever in Australia. I think there was a couple in the US, but that's one of the first in the world, but it's definitely the first in Australia. So prior to this book, a blind mother and a sighted child would have to, it's a kid's book. So a blind mother and a sighted child would have to read two different versions. So the blind mother that was reading Braille would read a book that's white. So most Braille is on white paper. And then the sighted child would read a book that's got the text and the illustrations in it. So we've combined with collaboration with Vision Australia. They combined the Braille and the text and the illustrations all into one book, so they can share the same book together. So that was originally done as a thing, you know, as a tool, but it's become an education device. It's now on the Premier's reading list in all states of Australia. I think they've done nearly 30,000 copies of it.
Brilliant.
And I would get people reaching out to me all the time that their kids have brought it home from school, and that they had no idea what Braille was or what it was, and it's just, you know, that's opened their world to how other people consume information.
Yeah. Well, it is, you know, we're both fathers, and there is that beautiful experience that you share with your kids reading books on the couch before bed. Yes. And yeah, I guess people wouldn't have thought, or able-bodied people wouldn't have put in that sort of nuanced thought.
Yes.
For an audience member that, yeah, if you are a blind or, you know, someone with low vision who uses Braille to read a book, yeah, your kid's going to be looking at nothing.
Yeah.
They're going to have to use their imagination for a piece of paper that just has, you know, some imprints on it. But this is, it allows everyone to have the same experience.
Yeah.
And you can even ask your child, what are you seeing on the page? Can you tell me about, you know, it's a bit more all in.
There you go. It's
beautiful.
So you're already evolving with your blindness, because that's how I read with my kids growing up, because I couldn't read and I can't read Braille.
All right,
Yeah. The dumbest thing I ever did, because I was too cool and I didn't want to be different. Now, obviously, with voiceover and all those tools, I'm able to read my emails and do everything. I've got calendar and amazing stuff with
Siri.
Siri's great.
The bowl of uncomfortable. These are questions designed to ask uncomfortable to make them hopefully comfortable for people going forward.
Yeah.
As you said, you do love a sticky question.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and remember these. I was formatting these only moments before you arrived into the studio. Okay. I know that we got a question from somebody who was asking, do you have the ultimate excuse for snaking away from somebody? Being blind.
You would think that. That's a good question, and I actually get asked that a fair bit. And when I'm surfing with guys for the first time spotting for me, they will say that it's okay, you can't see them, but I really don't like it because it becomes everybody drops in. Like, so for the audience that aren't surfers, snaking is taking a wave. So the person that's closest to the whitewash or the curl of the wave, when they take off, that's essentially their wave. They have the right to the wave, and it's as much as pop culture now thinks that surfing's very aggressive. It's actually the way everyone stays safe. Because if you have a rule, then people aren't running over each other. Anyway, so and
it's heavily policed within the community out in the water.
Well, it used to be. It's not anymore, mate.
Really?
I will call it out.
Okay.
Surfing's becoming unfun. Because everyone's entitled.
I did see Noosa Heads. I watched the surf from the point about maybe a few months ago, and I was like, "What's going on out here? Like 6 people on a wave. It's not a party wave.
It's a zoo. No one has any respect for each other. It's awful, and it's happening everywhere now. It's just really bad. Anyway, so the boys call me into wave, like, yep, and then I go, and then I've dropped in on someone, and they come back out, and it's like, oh, and someone's blowing up, like they're like, this guy, and then everyone's like, I was Matty, you can't see it, just you're all good. But I feel really bad about it because I don't want to drop in on people, and I really don't like when people drop in on me.
It's part of the culture of what you grew up with.
Well, I grew up in North Narrabeen, mate. It's probably one of the heaviest cultures in the world. Like, it's probably only Maroubra in Australia that's on the same level, and then that you got to go to North Shore, Hawaii to go another level. So it was full on. But yeah, it is an excuse, but it's not an excuse that I would ever use. And I'm very apologetic if I ever fade someone because no one needs it.
I did kind of tease for this question, but it was my favourite of the bowl of uncomfortable. Also, our last question. I think it was someone saying they're a father, skydived when they were 20s.
Yeah.
Now have a family and wouldn't take the risk because of the responsibility of being a dad in their case.
Okay.
For his family's sake, how do you justify beyond personal thrill and adrenaline rush that risk you're taking to yourself?
Well, once again, it's the perceived risk versus the real risk.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a great question. So, but I think it goes back to like looking at the data. How many people actually died doing that? How many people died that were highly experienced and trained doing that? How many people that then had the best safety team in the world, best protocols? Like, when you manage risks properly and you've got the best equipment, all the safety is done, I think when you look at the reality of it, there's actually not a lot of risk. So I think it's that perception of risk as opposed to what the real risk is, and then managing that risk. The reality is, even though I've made films and I've done stuff that should have highlights and dramatizes the risk of these things, the reality is that the biggest risk that I have when I do most of the extreme things I do is driving to the airport.
Okay. So you really truly believe that? Like, driving to the airport is more dangerous than a 50-foot wave in
That's
Nazaré?
what the data says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, but it's also like when I think about those data points, more people die in car accidents. It's like weird, but more people are on the road than they are riding surf.
Yes.
So, of course, that statistic's going to be heightened.
Yep.
But I guess, one thing that I would say is you should never have limitations. Even as a father, I don't have to lose my joy just for the benefit of my children. I think my children, I hope grow up to see a dad who, is striving towards being a great Angus O'Loughlin. The person's, not just the father. I still want to be setting an example of the cool things that I do that make me me and the father that's before them.
I also feel a responsibility to the disability community as well. I feel in some sports we haven't pushed the limits enough. So I almost feel like with some of the sports, especially the extreme stuff, it's like this is the level. The level before was like 20 foot, 50 foot's where it should be. Like if I can leave a legacy, it's like this is the level, boys, come and get it.
Yeah. There's no ceiling.
No.
An amazing moment and opportunity to sit here with you. Can I take a little experiment out? Yes. I reckon you would have, just from the last, and I won't give away what my guess is, time spent with the goggles on doing this chat. Yeah. I would say that I would think that you would have a better perception of time. Should we have a guess of how long we think we've been speaking for? Because I haven't obviously had an opportunity to look at my watch.
If my wife was listening to this live, she would be laughing at you right now.
Okay, why is that?
Because she thinks I have a bad perception of time.
All right, well, let's find out. You say your guess and I'll say my guess, then Amelia, our producer, will tell us. Because I have my idea in my head.
I'm going to go 56 minutes.
It's really close to mine. I was 52.
Okay.
Amelia?
57.
Oh, shit, Matt. Take that to the wife. Take that home.
I was in my head. I was going between 56 and 58. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for spending that exact amount of time with us.
Can I give you one more? Because I'm going to close out.
Please.
I've got a cool one that's based on that thing.
Yep.
And it's one that Dylan will love. So tennis is not my sport. I've played tennis a bit. Every time I play tennis, I get hit in the balls. I can hear the ball and I track it, and I end up lining my body up with where the ball is, and it just my area. And I actually said this on the project, and they had a good laugh about it. But I ended up getting hit the balls by that little ball somehow. I don't know how they line up with each other. Yeah. But I went to the tennis, obviously, in my role at Optus. We used to be a big sponsor of the Australian Open, so I would host customers there. But I can't see the game, so I would sit there and just listen. And they've obviously got the speedo on the serve.
Yeah. Yep.
I basically developed this party trick where I could tell you within 1 kilometre an hour how fast the serve was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because I'd say to the guys, how fast was that? How fast was that? How fast was that? And it started training my brain.
Yeah.
And then, over a day or two, I was like, bang, and I was the human radar.
Wow, 126 kms. Yes. Bang.
Yeah, literally.
And it would just come down from that velocity that you could hear.
Yeah, it was the sound.
Yeah,
so I'd hear from when it hit the racket until it hit the ground. So I don't know what it was, but my brain just trained my brain, and I just picked up the data points, and then all of a sudden I could do it. Yeah, cool party trick. Customers
very
love
cool.
Yep.
Love that.
Yep.
Matt Formston, thank you so much for coming on. If you want to get the book, the links are going to be in the show notes below, as well as a link to watch the movie itself, which is brilliant. We really appreciate you coming down from Sydney, and we hope this. Should I take the glasses off now?
Yes, please.
Do you think?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Let's be the real you. You are the real you, but yeah.
Yeah.
How bright is everything?
Yeah, pretty bright.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So your eyes do take a moment. I wonder if my pupils are dilating. Yeah, wow. It's a bit of a interesting welcome back to the world.
Yeah. I don't get to go back to that world.
No.
I just got to stay with my goggles on.
Yeah. But I'm not going to feel bad about that because you got an incredible story.
Yeah, no, all good. Thanks for having me, mate. Really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.